Thank you for joining me for the 8th episode of the Doc Talk with Liz podcast. Today's episode features Me'lani Labat Joseph. Me'lani obtained her bachelor's in engineering from MIT and later went on to complete a master's in public policy studies at the University of Chicago. Her current work is focused on increasing diversity in STEM and increasing accessibility to STEM. Hello, everybody. Today, our guest star is Me'lani Labat Joseph. Interesting fact, Me'lani is actually one of my cousins, so I'm very excited to have her on today. So thank you so much for joining us and for being willing to come on and just speak about your experiences in STEM.
Absolutely.
So can you I know that you got a degree in engineering and public policy, but before we dive into that, I really want to know kind of how your upbringing influenced you to go on to pursue those different things, how your parents taught you when you were younger, your passions and just experiences as an African-American woman and how that really gave you a passion for STEM.
Sure. Well, thank you, Lizzie, for inviting me on your podcast. I feel very honored and privileged. So thank you very much for that. And I want to say how proud I am of you, and I'm not surprised, and I forward to seeing the amazing things that you continue to do in this world, in this life. So very, very proud of you. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And as many of you may know, it's a very diverse area, just very lively and very thriving. And so that was the environment that I grew up in. And my mother was a very sciencey oriented person. And so she's a very deep thinker, and she probably would have majored in astrophysics if she was encouraged, but she actually majored in nursing, public health nursing, got a graduate degree in that. But I was always around just very high level thinking around math and science, and it was just very natural for me to be around that. And so, so I grew up just around math and science, and it was very accessible to me. I can remember my dad buying me a train set when I was, I think about 5. And I still remember this train set on this big board. It was like a circle train. I would just love buying different trains to fit on the trains, to fit on the tracks. And I also really enjoyed building model cars. And I think my dad actually got me into that as well. And so I would spend hours and hours building model cars as a young person. So I was using my, motor skills very, very early. And math and science was never, ever, it was something that I always felt comfortable with and something I knew that I could do. I like to tell the story where when I was in preschool in Las Vegas, my mom would tell the story that I would sit around and play card games with the card dealers' kids. And so I'm thinking that's probably also where I really learned to be comfortable and familiar with numbers.
Right.
As a, almost toddler, playing card games. Yeah. And so that's just carried on into my adult life. And I would say also traveling. My mom, because she was this public health nurse with a very wide view of the world, she had been to Russia and Europe. And so she got a job in Tanzania, East Africa. And so me and her moved there when I was 11. I was 11, 12. And so that for me was actually the light bulb moment when I decided when I wanted to study engineering, because we lived in a small village about 60 kilometers north of the capital city, Dar es Salaam. And even though we lived in a house that had running water and electricity, we lived in a community where people didn't have that. They didn't have electricity, they didn't have running water. They didn't have paved roads, they didn't have irrigation systems. So that really stuck out in my mind. And so as I just got older, I wanted to I wanted to be an international developer. So I wanted to go to developing countries and create transportation systems and irrigation systems for developing countries. And so that's really where where I solidified my interest in studying engineering. And math and science always was pretty wouldn't say easy, but it definitely, I worked at it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't hard.
Yes.
And I had a lot of supports around me to encourage me to thrive at the highest levels.
Mm-hmm. That's really remarkable, especially the points that you make about how engineering can really translate to helping people who are less fortunate maybe, or in more adverse situations, and how that can be used to create cheaper technologies for them that kind of function at the same level as the technologies that other people may currently use. And so that kind of got you interested in engineering, and so you knew that you wanted to go into it. So what was the first step that you had to take after that to end up becoming an engineer, such as like undergraduate and
right? So that's so definitely go to high school, do well in high school, and I'll put a plug for, I was a part of this program called UCO Mesa, the Math Engineering Science Achievement Program, and I think it may have been based out of California, but it was a collaboration with the University of California, Berkeley, so I went to Berkeley High School, and Berkeley High School is literally blocks away from the University of California, Berkeley. And so through this MESA program, it was to get underrepresented minority students interested and exposed to STEM. And so I had a director. So I would go to after school and we would have tutoring. We'd go to Cal Berkeley for different programs as well. But my director on my high school side, he was actually an MIT PhD graduate. He had his PhD from MIT.
Wow.
So I'll never forget when I was literally doing a math problem, and he just tapped me on the shoulder and said, you should apply to MIT. And I literally can still, Rich Hemphill was his name, Dr. Rich Hemphill. And I literally, that was the moment that I considered going to MIT. And I wanted to go to the best engineering school, and I wanted to leave California to get, a broader experience.
Right.
And so got in and then went and studied mechanical engineering and had some really great internships during the summer. So I worked at Honeywell Commercial Flight Systems Group in Scottsdale, Arizona for a couple summers. I worked at Bechtel National Corporation, San Francisco, another summer. And so I had some really great, I actually worked at HP as well in Palo Alto during one of my summers as well, doing mechanical engineering type things.
Yes.
And I realized that that was not necessarily the path I wanted to take, which is really good, because that's why you have internships to
right
to the world of whatever the career you think you want to do.
Yep.
So, so I knew that I wanted to go on to graduate school after going to MIT, and I was interested in community development. And so I was thinking about what types of programs could help me to maybe use my technical experience that I got at MIT, problem solving experience that, once you get an engineering degree, you literally can do anything. There are so many people that I graduated with that went on to business school, to medicine, to law. I think I'm one of the few that went to public policy, but you literally, it's such a great foundation. And so, so I want to put a plug in there. And I've dedicated my most of my professional career getting young people interested in STEM. Yes. So I put a plug in there. But for me, I really wanted to have an impact on the community. And so that's why I went to graduate school in public policy, went to the University of Chicago.
Ooh.
I got a master's in public policy studies and concentrated in urban poverty, because I was really interested in African-American and Black and Brown communities. And so, so after going to U of C, then I got my first job at in the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development. So I was doing community and urban development, and really had a good just exposure to how communities develop or not.
Right.
It was a great learning experience. And so actually Valerie Jarrett, who is, as you may know, President Obama's senior advisor, she gave me my first job out of grad school. So I was she was the commissioner of the planning department. So I was her assistant. So that was, just incredible and valuable learning experience for me. So I'll stop there.
Well, that's really awesome, especially with the point that you make about how engineering degrees really do give you the foundation to be able to go on to study whatever you want to, just because of the skills, the like critical thinking, problem solving abilities that it really gives you to be able to kind of transition to any career that really interests you. And so after you had your first job, where did you go from there?
Yeah, great question. So I had my first job out of grad school, and then I had my first kid. So that was 23 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so had my daughter, and just kind of my priorities shifted, and it was really interesting how things happen. But so I've been doing this community urban development, and then my focus really, once I had my first child, my focus shifted on youth development. And so so after I left the city, and then I stayed home with my daughter for about a year and a half or so. Then I had a second child. And so during that time, I was doing some consulting work. And so, but really my priorities had shifted to my kids,
Right.
but also maintaining some professional, keeping my foot in the professional world.
Right.
And that's also what an engineering degree, a graduate degree can do for you, is create opportunities for you.
Yes.
So I always tell my kids that, and I've been banging this in their heads for ever since they were little, is, you got to go to college, we got to go to more school. So college is not enough, but getting a graduate degree is, so I strongly encourage young people to not stop at college, but to get a graduate degree. And so, because it does afford you opportunities and that you just may not have if you don't have those advanced degrees.
Right.
So so I did consulting work with various organizations, with the Film Museum of Natural History. I worked for them. I did some work with After School Matters.
So the consulting work that you did, was that specifically to increase diversity in STEM, or?
Yeah, not necessarily, not originally it wasn't, but it was more, it was enrichment. So I like to say I'm an informal education educator. So I'm not a formal teacher,
Right.
but I like to do informal education. And so all of the opportunities I've had have been in kind of informal education space.
Right.
And so they've allowed me to just be really creative on how I can use incredible resources of, say, like the museum, the Film Museum, or an organization like After School Matters or Project Exploration.
Yep.
So using incredible resources that those organizations have to increase math and science awareness to young people and to adults as well.
Yep, absolutely. So you said that you had first your daughter, Layla, and then son, Malik, and then you were still doing some consulting work around that time, and then you had a Yande, but how much later was that? Okay.
Yes. So, right, good question. So had Malik, my middle son, and then I stayed at home again another couple years, and then decided I was going to go back. So at the time when I decided I was going to go back to work full time, I did, and literally, I think it was like within 2 weeks, I found out I was pregnant. I started this job, and so
oh my goodness.
So I that's just how life works sometimes. Right. So I worked up until the day before I delivered, actually. My last day of my job at After School Matters, then that next day I delivered a Yande. And I had to walk actually so I took the train this is in Chicago, took the train down to the train station. I had a good 7-block walk to my office. And so I literally had done that, say that Thursday, and walked back to the train, got on, like that Friday I had a Yande.
Oh my goodness.
It's my third child. So, so I went up until the very, very end, which was fine. And then, yeah, stayed at home with him for about another year or so. And then we actually moved to Cleveland during the time when he was a young baby. At 2 years old, we moved to Cleveland. And again, did some consulting. Again, really, I was had the luxury of being able to have jobs that were not full time. So once I started having my first kid, then I was able to take jobs that were less than full time, which really worked for me. And at that time, my husband had was traveling quite a bit. And so I would often have to be the sole parent taking care of the kids. And so it really helped that I didn't have a full-time job, but I was able to do some work, but also really focus on my kids, which I just feel so really blessed that I've been able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys moved from Chicago to Cleveland because of a job change?
Yeah, so my husband, Mark, got a job at Case Western Reserve University. And so we packed up. I actually thought we lived in Chicago forever.
Wow.
It's such a great city. And so I really thought that was gonna be our spot. We're gonna set down some roots there. Yep. But the Cleveland job came up, and it actually turned out to be a really, really wonderful opportunity for both Mark, for our family, and ultimately for me. Right. And so we moved to Cleveland, and we moved to the Shaker Heights community. We were very intentional about where we wanted to move. We wanted to move to an area that was racially diverse. Yeah. And we wanted to send our kids to public schools. That was really important to us, because both myself and my husband went to public schools. And so we could do that at Shaker Heights School District. Mm-hmm. And it hasn't been perfect, but it's been a really good match for our kids and our family. It's a really beautiful area. And so we moved here, and again, Ayande was 2. Right. And so I was able to stay home with him and really just pour everything I had into him. Yes. And again, taking on some consultant jobs, but it really was based upon my schedule. Right. And once he got to a certain age where he could, didn't need me so much, then I went to work more. I went to a job actually at Case Western Reserve University, where I did STEM outreach for the university. And so, and then I worked there for 13 years. And so I was in different capacities, but all getting young people, pre-college youth, engaged with Case Western's faculty, students, and staff. Right. So, and that was, and so through that work, I was able to influence thousands of young people who would not have had access to Case's incredible, STEM resources. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that I actually was one of those people, because there were times throughout the summers where you would kind of communicate with my mom and be like, there's some engineering camps going on. Would Lizzie be interested? And I ended up going, and here I am. I love engineering now. So I mean, there we go. It definitely was something that influenced me, for sure. And I always remember going to those with Ayande, and we would always end up being like partners on projects. And so we would kind of get to work together, do some cousinly bonding through engineering work. And so, yeah, I definitely think those were always a really great experience for me, and really helped to shape my path and where I have ended up now and where I'm going to go in the future. So you've done all of these amazing and incredible things, like with encouragement from your family, friends, all of these different people. But I'm also wondering about maybe some of the other obstacles you faced to get to where you are now with all of this success. Was it difficult being an African-American woman in STEM? I mean, what were the obstacles that kind of put in front of you that you had to overcome? Yes, I would say there's not a lot of African-American females in this space. And so my last 9 years working at the university at Case Western, I was working in the engineering school. And yeah, it could be very isolating, quite honestly, and so in my office setting, there weren't a lot of young people of color like myself. And then even in the organizations that I was affiliated with doing my work, there weren't a lot of brown faces around the tables when I would go to meetings. And so it's a matter of, making sure your voice is heard, and I think making connections is a little more difficult because folks aren't necessarily, extending their arm out to you. And so you have to be a little bit more outgoing and meeting people. And I do know that in my work that I'm a really good collaborator. And so I vibe off other people's energy. And so if there's good mutual energy, then really, really wonderful things tend to happen. But if there's not the mutual energy, it just takes longer to get things done. And that's what I'm really realizing about this work that I'm doing. I'm looking forward to sharing with you my current work that I'm doing.
Yes.
But I really feel like pretty much most things are based upon relationships and how just how people view each other and jive with each other. And if there's mutual respect, then I think that we can accomplish so much more than if there wasn't. And so, so I would say the work that I've done has been pretty isolating within the institution, but I was very fortunate enough to have a really wide network of people that were doing similar work as me. And so I really got energy from those other people that were doing similar work and had similar passions as I did.
Right, absolutely. So you also mentioned your current work. What do you currently work on, actually?
Yeah, so very exciting.
Yes.
So I left Case Western Reserve University and started my own consulting business called Transformative Innovations LLC. And it's all about, so I really wanted to figure out, how do I take my interests and passions and my interests and passions are creating opportunities for Black and Brown youth to see themselves outside of their porches, their blocks, their neighborhoods, their communities,
right,
and this nation. And so that's really my passion, is expanding the horizons of young people. And so I'll just go back a little bit and say, so since I was fortunate to have lived overseas in Tanzania, East Africa when I was younger, and my husband also was able to live in Africa and in several different countries when he was a youngster. So we had wanted to have that experience for our own kids. And so back in 2014, we actually moved our 3 kids to Ghana, Accra, Ghana, for 6 months, and had a wonderfully immersive experience in Ghanaian culture. And also been really blessed to travel the world. I've been to Asia, I've been to South America, I've been to Central America, I've been to Africa, I've been to Australia.
Wow.
So all over the world. And I really feel like seeing the world just expand your horizons in a way that you can never imagine. And I want that for all kids. I want that for all people. And so the work that I do is really intended on expanding young people's views of themselves and of their place in the world. And so living in Africa, in Ghana, I'm hoping my kids will know that, they're a very small piece of this big world.
Right.
So I think that just helps you. It helps you just put your life and your world in context where, you may live in a certain way, but there's other people, millions, billions of other people in the world who are living really differently from yourself.
Right.
And so yeah, so my passion really has been, and still is, creating these wonderful opportunities for young people. So in my new business, I really want to have this broader impact. And so my business is all about helping be a thought partner with organizations and institutions who work with communities and work with youth. And I'm all about maximizing the outcomes of youth and communities.
Right.
And so my business is about doing that. And so currently I've been fortunate enough to work with two really big foundations here in Cleveland, the Cleveland Foundation, the North Central Corporation Foundation, and they're really interested in equity and STEM and STEAM. And so I'm helping them think about what that might look like on a much broader scale. And so as they think about their investment strategies, then I'm gonna help them think about where they might invest to get the biggest bang for their buck, to really impact real change. Like, how do we really get more Black and brown young people exposed to STEM and STEAM, interested in it, and then thriving in it as a career. And so that's what my new role is. And I love it. I really, really love it. It's been great to work with folks. I'm meeting a ton of people because I'm doing this landscape analysis of the different STEAM providers and stakeholders in the Northeast Ohio region. And so it's just every day I talk with someone, I'm just learning something new, and just my mind is just going a mile a minute. So it's awesome.
Absolutely. In the first part of this podcast interview, Me'lani mentions that her interest in STEM developed from experiences she had when she was younger. Her parents gave her opportunities to engage with STEM from a young age. An engineering degree can allow you to go in many directions. You can go into the medical field, policy, teaching, etc. As an African American woman in STEM, Me'lani had to overcome different obstacles. She finds that it is very important to have mutual energy when working on projects with people. Lastly, Me'lani mentions that she started a consulting company where she assists foundations and businesses with investing to give youth of color more opportunities to engage in STEM. And real quick, I want to go back because you were talking about all this travel that you did. Do you have a favorite place that you visited, or is it kind of hard to choose one out of all of the different places that you've been to?
Yeah, it's so hard to choose.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it really depends on, Italy was awesome. Africa's awesome. It just depends on, New Zealand was awesome.
Right. Yeah. Right. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I went to Cuba when I was a youngster. That was a really, my mom gave me was travel. And so I remember going to Cuba with her when I was, probably about 7, 8 years old. And I remember it so vividly.
That's awesome.
I don't have a favorite place.
I can't blame you. One of the main place that I go, as you probably know, is Canada, probably because my dad's family still lives over there. But I've always wanted to go to specifically visit Guyana, since that's where my dad was born. I'd really like to be able to visit Georgetown and kind of just go around and get a sense of the culture actually in Guyana. But honestly, I would want to travel like anywhere, especially like post-COVID when things are starting to open back up. I think a lot of people are going to be looking to be able to travel and kind of get out of the house, get out of where.
Yes, for sure. I can't really plug enough for young people and more mature people, but young people in particular, is to have an interest in travel, because not everyone has an interest in travel, but I just feel like it's such a key thing to just see how other people are living in a different culture and society. It's the most amazing thing. And so so we've passed on that love to our kids. And so my daughter, the oldest one, did a study abroad in Chile, Santiago, Chile. And while she was in Chile, I like to tell the story, she got herself a job in New Zealand like the next summer.
Wow. Oh my
She went
goodness.
to New Zealand by herself. And I mean, we went to visit her, which was awesome. But and then Malik also set on doing a study abroad, went to Greece for this was pre-pandemic. So he went to Greece for about a month and a half, got out there just in time. But I'm sure Yande will be doing a study abroad as well somewhere.
Oh yes, I'm sure. I mean, just based off Ayande's personality, I can definitely see him wanting to like go and explore and travel the world and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that interests me, and I think everybody should go somewhere.
Yeah. No, and I think especially going to a developing country, I think is really important, because I tell my kids that if you've lived in Africa, you can do anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can do anything. So that's what I just keep telling them.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And then kind of going back to what you were talking about with your company, how long has it been since you started that company, out of curiosity? Is that a recent development?
Yeah, so I started back in the fall of 2020.
Okay.
But I'm just because I was still working at my other job, it was a little hard to really focus on the company work. But now that I'm not doing other work, I can really focus on my company work.
Right.
And so it's been really, really busy and a lot of work.
Yes.
Which I'm thankful for. It's a lot of work. It's really exciting, and I'm getting new clients, and so that's nice as well. Yeah, it's touching the passion part of me. And another thing I did mention, which I do want to mention, is I pretty much live and breathe youth development, program development, management. And so, I have these 3 kids, and my daughter Layla went to Stanford University and graduated last year. Malik is a junior at DePaul University in Chicago, and Ayande is a junior in high school. And so on the family front, I've had this influence on young people. My professional world, I've had this influence on young people. But then in my civic life, I've also had a really, really robust civic life. And I think that's really important as well, and shapes me. And most of my civic life, with the exception of being on the MIT Black Alumni Board for a couple years, has focused on youth. And so I was on the board of a charter school in Cleveland for 8 years, and really, really dedicated to that. And then I was also really, really involved in Shaker Heights School stuff over the last 14 years, I would say, but also have been involved in other boards that are all about young people. And so my heart really is on just how do we grow young people so that they can be successful in life. I love sports, and I love tennis. So I actually am on the board of an organization called Advantage Cleveland Tennis and Education. And so it marries my passion for tennis also with young people. And so, so I also would want to say to young people out there is, I've been really fortunate enough to work in jobs that really touch my passion. So, and I know a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people work and are not passionate about their work, but I really feel like I hope the young people can find their passion. Like I think you, Lizzie, have, found a passion.
Yes.
And continue to find that passion.
Yes.
We'll continue to do that as you get older.
Yes.
But I really, my prayer and hope for everyone is to find something they can do in their life that's that touches their heart. Yeah. Like I would do this work even though I wasn't getting paid.
Right.
And so I don't think a lot of people can say that, but I really feel like it's important for young people to do that, to do something that, if you're able,
right.
put yourself in a position to do work that really touches your passion and your heart. And so I've been really, really blessed to be able to do work that really touches my heart, is my passion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely spot on, because like that's actually really how I feel about, I mean, of course, I'm not super far into my career yet, but I really feel like you know, getting like being a doctor and stuff, I feel like even though I have not I'm not a doctor, but I mean, like, I feel like when I get to that point, it's really going to be like in every patient that I have and stuff, that I'm going to be able to identify different parts of them that kind of resemble my dad and stuff, and looking at them and seeing, you know, how would I want somebody to treat my dad, or how would I want them to kind of, you know, put all this time into his care plan and, you know, his medicine and his treatments, and, you know, ensuring that we can afford it financially, spiritually, emotionally, not just looking at things physically and that kind of thing. So I think that when you find your passion, it allows you to do a lot more, because that's what you want to do. And so you're willing to go above and beyond, rather than, like, as you were saying, you know, just doing something to get money. I mean, there are situations in which you have to do that, but if you can find a passion, then that'll make your life so much just kind of better in a way, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so kind of going off of your passion, what have been some of your career highlights with getting to, you know, work with something that really touches your heart, and benefits that you've seen from your work?
Yeah, so I was, before I started my job at Case Western Reserve University, I worked for a private girls' school called Laurel School in Shaker Heights, and was able to design a program called the North Star Collaborative with the head of school there, Ann Klotz. And so our dream was to take a young cohort of girls who were then in 3rd and 4th grade and support them throughout college.
Awesome.
And so I'm happy to say that I think all of those girls are now in college. Not all of them, but the majority of the cohort are in college. They're college age.
Yes.
And so I think for me, that is like one of my professional highlights, is coming up with this model program that would then translate into, you know, cohort of young, and they're all African-American females. I worked with a elementary all-girls school here in Cleveland. And so I think for me, that has absolutely been, yes, just a professional highlight, is to craft something like that and then to have it have that kind of impact. Also, all the work that I've been in, have been a part of, has been either on TV, on print, or on radio.
Wow.
So I'm just really proud of that.
Yeah.
I recognizing Crane's business as a notable woman in STEM, you know, which it just validates the work that you do in this space.
Absolutely.
And I'm just really proud of my civic work as well. I think I'm a really valuable partner and board member to all the organizations that I'm a part of, and work really, really hard. And so it's nice to see the fruits of all that labor. And then my kids, quite honestly, I mean, they're really my my little experiments. So Layla is actually she's applying to medical school actually this month, and is planning to pursue an MD, PhD.
Oh man, awesome.
Medical anthropology. And Malik has high aspirations in advertising and PR, but also I see him as having a really great community focus as well, ultimately in his career. And Ayande is going to outdo all of us. So who knows what that's going to mean, but that means he has to outdo Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Harvard.
Start his own university.
So these are all the colleges that his family members have been to and have gotten degrees from, and so he has to outdo all that. So we'll see about him, but I really feel like, yeah, I think my kids are also. I'm super, super proud of each of them. They're just wonderful, wonderful human beings. And I know that they're going to carry on mine and my husband's legacy of making a change in the world. That is really what we have taught them, have modeled for them. And I just can't wait to see them do it.
Right, absolutely. And you said that they were kind of like your experiments. So I guess I could say that those seem very successful experiments right now. So it was all set up right to work out. But so those are some like really amazing career highlights. And I think it kind of demonstrates to all of us how when you really shoot for the stars and do something that you love, the outcomes are amazing and, are obviously, like we said previously, better than if you're just doing something to do it. You really need to find your passion at some point and be able to pursue that. And so we've talked about some of your successes. And so now I'm kind of wondering about some of the maybe key lessons that you can, like what you consider to be key lessons that you've learned through your career and your personal life, whether that be through successes or failures, and kind of things that you think would be beneficial for other maybe young people to hear now.
Yeah, so I would say, so I was brought up to treat everyone as how you want to be treated, and to that no one is of greater value than you. Everyone is of equal value.
Yep.
And I think that's something that how I operate through my life is treating people on an equal plane. But in America, it's hard to maintain that because there is racism, and people are going to treat you not on the same plane. And so you really have to develop a really strong mindset in order to tackle that. And that's for any person of color, really in the world. I've traveled extensively, like I mentioned, and I can't think of one place where the lighter you are, the more valued you are. And so, so I would say a lesson is cultivating a really strong internal foundation and faith in yourself, and belief, self-confidence,
right,
that no matter what, you can rise above anything. I think demanding mutual respect is also something that I govern my whole life around.
right.
And so I think that's important for young people, anybody, but especially young people.
Right.
I think having high expectations for yourself and for other people is critical. And in all the work that I do with youth and developing programs for youth and engaging with youth, it's always having high expectations for them.
Right.
And start with my own kids. I have really, really high expectations for them, and
absolutely
they have risen up to that, expectation, and continue to rise up to that expectation. So I think that's critical as well. I think that I've learned that one person can make a difference.
Right.
And so actually I should have gotten this lesson earlier, but I think somehow learning about Thurgood Marshall, watching the movie Marshall, which Bozeman, something in me clicked that, even though we had examples like Mandela, there's many, many examples of people that do wonderful things, but learning about Thurgood Marshall's, just one person during his time, how he literally transformed the justice system, education, really like eye-opening. And so, and I really feel like one person can make a difference. Sure, it'd be nice to have other people to be on your team.
Right.
I think being visionary is also something that I've learned, is that having a vision and being able to execute is a great lesson. I have a lot of ideas. I'm a great visionary, but also I can execute. And so I think that's really important as well, is having big, big dreams, but also figuring out how to execute and make things happen. So now in my career, I'm all about action.
Yes.
So I don't know how much longer I'll be working in this space, but my time is fleeting, and I'll be passing the baton on to you and to other young people. And so I want to just make the most of what I have right now and be the most impactful that I can. And so I think everyone has the potential to do really great things in the world. And so I hope for everybody, especially young people, that they know that they know, like Lizzie, you know that you have the ability to make great changes in the world, right? I want every young person to know that somewhere inside of them, they have the ability to make great things happen in the world. And we need young people.
Yes.
We need young people to step up and to make great things happen in the world. Yep. And so that's what I'm counting on.
Absolutely. I mean, I fully agree with that. And I think that you're really right about the point that, even one person can make a change, because I do think that a lot of the time it's kind of like we talk about having a team, and what you're right. It's nice to have a team and other people that can back you. But I think a whole point of also making a change is being willing to stand up even when there aren't other stand up for what is right, even when there aren't other people that are backing that. And that can actually, make more of a change than a bunch of people can if they're supporting something that maybe is kind of wrong or should not be supported. And so, I mean, just being able to be fearless in what you're doing and what you believe, and to be bold and standing up for those things is really powerful just in itself.
I do think it's a little tricky, because when you first start off in your career, right, you're not going to probably be, unless you're like you own the company or the institution, you're probably not going to be too radical in your thoughts. Yeah. But when you get a little bit more mature in your career, like me, then I have a luxury of being a little bit more vocal. But I do feel like, even my daughter Layla, as a young person starting her career, that she's forming all of these opinions. And because we've had such a tumultuous couple of years with COVID, but all the very, very highly visible outward killings of Black people, that is traumatic for most Black people. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a lot going on in the brains of young people right now, and so how they filter that and figure out what they're going to do with that is also challenging.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, it's just a little tricky when you're younger. You have these big, high ideals, and then trying to navigate kind of spaces of spaces that aren't normally used to those really intense conversations is just a little tricky.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. I mean, it's definitely like you said, a hard balance to achieve, and sometimes it kind of feels like you have to hold back a little bit to what you could say to other people and stuff. So those are things that are very important to navigate, because you don't want to, lose your income or your job or what you're doing, because you need to be able to provide for yourselves. But so that's another really good point. And I'm wondering if you have any pieces of advice for people that might be struggling with navigating that. Do you have any, on top of what you've already said, what you would suggest they do if they have these beliefs and they're having a really hard time being able to communicate those without receiving backlash?
So I would encourage young people to, it could be more mature people too, like myself, to find other people to have conversations with. And so I know for my daughter, I always ask her, so you're talking with your Stanford friends, about this? And so I do think talking with your peers and with, so she's been home for the last year, so she's had her parents to talk to about these things. So I think having other people to share your ideals with can help you kind of sift through all the emotions that are going through you.
Right.
Like go to Yande, you know,
Right.
talk about certain things. So I think it's good to have people that you can bounce your ideas off of and maybe kind of, you know, cool your jets a little bit.
Absolutely.
Maybe you fired up. So
Absolutely.
I do feel like having mentors is critical as well.
Right.
If you can identify someone, not everyone has a mentor,
Mhm.
but I'm going to be meeting actually with one of Layla's good friends from Stanford who got a degree in engineering at Stanford in 2020,
Awesome.
but is not really fulfilled in her job right now. And so I'm going to talk to her about, you know, just her interests. I think having someone to talk to about just kind of what you're going through is also really, really important.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And just like you said, Ayande and we definitely talk a lot about things and stuff. And, you know, we're kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this makes sense. And we're like kind of just like cooling down a little bit and being able to kind of just get your feelings and emotions out so that they're not all building up inside of you, because then that leads to, obviously that's not a good thing to have happen. And so, you know, you kind of walked us through some good ideas for being able to navigate that. And now I'm wondering, on top of what you do, how can other people get more, you know, youth of color and youth in general, just to be more interested in pursuing STEM careers? No, like encouraging them.
Yeah, so my mantra is early and often. So I firmly believe that one of the surefire ways to get young people interested in STEM is to expose them early.
Right.
So for me, I was in the womb with someone who was living and breathing math and science, my mom.
Yes.
everyone doesn't have that, right?
Right.
So I think that exposing young people very, very early to STEM is critical. And then sustaining that engagement over their lifetime is critical. Math is critical.
Right.
So getting math exposure early and often is critical, because all STEM is based on a foundation of math. If you're not strong in math, then being a professional in STEM is pretty much near impossible.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean you're going to be a mathematician, but you have to be familiar and comfortable with numbers and with math.
Yeah.
So, so my mantra is always early and often. And I know teachers are really important, can be really important in a young person's life as far as getting excited about math.
Right.
I operate in the informal education space. I think that there are some quality after school programs and summer programs that young people can do that, like you did, Lizzie, you know, the pre-medical camp.
Yes.
And Leigh actually also refers to those pre-medical camp as something really important to her and her interest in becoming a doctor. And so I think those opportunities are also really, really important for young people to get interested in STEM and to see themselves in it, right? I mean, you spend all the time in hospitals with your father, and so you are naturally talking with physicians, so you got really comfortable early, you know, in the healthcare space. And so I'm sure that is why you're so comfortable now.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're an illustration of of what you can do when you're exposed to something early and often. And so I think that's just critical.
Right, absolutely. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because it's kind of like that can be intentional, the exposure to it, and also, you know, not intentional in the way that, you know, I was not necessarily intentionally being brought into hospitals, but through those experiences, even with being exposed to it, I was able to kind of say, oh, this is, I want to do this. Like, this is my passion. This is, you know, why this, I feel like it's my purpose, really. And it like being exposed to it allowed me to really realize that. And with all of the doctors I talked with, they really encouraged me to not just realize that was my purpose, but to really grab onto that and to start working towards that goal, at a young age. And through that, it's, there are obviously bumps in the roads stuff sometimes, but overall, I mean, what I'm working towards for me is worth it to have to, go through like hardships and troubles and, learning different things at a younger age. So the other question that I have is, so the last question was kind of based off of what can other people do for kind of encouraging youth. Now I'm wondering what youth can do to kind of make a difference and to work towards their goals.
That's a good one. So, I mean, I think you're actually the model. You're an exception. I think you're pretty special, but I think that there's a lot of untapped ability left on the table.
Right.
And so I think that young people are capable of so much more. And I think I think that you can have an adult in a young person's life that will encourage them to do the extra thing, but it still has to come somewhere from within. And I don't have the answer to that, honestly. I really, like for you, I feel like it was because of your life experience.
Absolutely.
That's why you have this passion.
Right.
And so, and not many people, young people have the experience that you had that's going to give you that passion at your age. So I think that for young people, it may take, a life experience. It may take a teacher that literally maybe bangs over their head that you would be good in this, you'd be good in that, do this. It may be just a young person being exposed to, say, robotics early or computer programming early, and they're just really interested in that themselves. But I don't know. I think that I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yep.
I do feel like the life experience piece, though, is critical.
Oh, absolutely.
Have a life-changing event like you did, Lizzie, in your life.
Right.
I think it's harder to get young people to really find their passion early. I think it's gonna be cultivated over a longer period of time, like through college, like going off to college and having that experience. I think that's when being on your own, living away from your family, like that's when I think a lot of young people then grow to find out, okay, what type of person do I want to be? What do I want to do with my life? I need to, I can't rely upon mom and dad to do that, or whoever, your grandparents or aunt and uncle. So I think it depends on the person, honestly, and the life experiences of a young person.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of just like what you said with traveling too. Traveling to these developing countries can be really life-changing for people because they see why engineering and all of these other STEM careers are so necessary for being able to provide for those that have less or are facing more obstacles to get to where other people are. And so I think that you're completely right because, for instance, if my dad hadn't been sick with MS and I hadn't been going to the hospitals like this often or, taking care of him, helping take care of him at home with my family, I don't know where I would be today. Like, I just can't imagine my life without that experience. And I mean, I would probably just be like wandering around trying to figure out what to do, like without that. So I definitely think that's completely right with having to find your passion through your experiences, kind of. And of course, there are instances where, people might not have done tons of stuff in science, but are kind of introduced to it, like you said, and they really love it, even if that wasn't something they necessarily deal with like I did in my life. But I mean, regardless, that's something that they have been exposed to and are participating with. So I definitely wholeheartedly agree with that. And then I had one more question to close out on. So kind of now we've talked about what's going on in the present and what we should do now, but and this might have changed due to COVID, but if you could envision the future of kind of STEM and with youth in STEM, what do you think that would look like and different programs that could be created?
Yeah, so in my current work right now, I'm thinking about that a lot. I want to know, how do you not just get 30 or 50 kids doing an incredible program and being inspired by STEM and STEAM, but how do you get all young people to be inspired and exposed to STEM and STEAM? And so one of my ideas is to place things like books early on, manipulatives for the toddlers,
Yes,
so hands-on activities for the kind of older child, and then more complex and games and more complex problems for kids as they get older. So actually giving every single young person that in their home, because that is what's missing is, for those who can afford those things and they have an abundance of books and games and they can go to fancy camps, but everyone doesn't have that. And so I've been thinking a lot about, how do you place those things? How do you make sure kids have those, young people have similar experiences that the more well-resourced people have? And so I'll be spending a good amount of time in the next year or so thinking about that. And there's actually some pilots going on in Northeast Ohio that I'm really interested in to see what they do as far as putting kits into people's homes around STEM. So yeah, I think it's getting as many kids, if not all kids, exposed hands-on to STEM concepts. So that's what I think is going to be a game changer, honestly. And developing a new mindset of both the young people and the adults, both parents and educators, that, all kids and young people are capable of excelling in STEM and supporting them. So having this mindset of that STEM is out there and it's accessible to everyone, not just the few.
right.
So that goes hand in hand with having the fancy, not so fancy actually, having the manipulatives and the books that encourage math and science.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point, because as you were talking about accessibility to even STEM resources, I would think that a really good thing to even get kids maybe interested in engineering are Legos. But a lot of the time, I think Legos are also kind of expensive, I mean, some Lego sets are really expensive. And I'm like, there are so many, this is a great resource, but it's not necessarily accessible to a lot of people. And so, just like you were saying, it's really important to have good resources that are also, affordable for people that don't make however much money a year for Lego sets or all of these other things like building blocks and different things like that. So, yeah. Absolutely.
So the key is trying to figure out what are some low-cost ways in which anyone could have fun learning about STEM.
Right. So. Absolutely. Well, those were all of the questions that I had for you today. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. I really, really had a great time doing this interview. And, just like you were saying, when you talk to people, you learn things. And I feel like I've learned so much just from this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Lizzie.
Yes, absolutely.
Chung in the making.
Absolutely.
Can't wait till I can call you that.
That will be a great day.
A great day. Well, thank you so much, Lizzie, and you're doing an awesome job. Just keep it up, and I just look forward to seeing you as you continue to flourish.
Absolutely. Thank you.
In the second part of this podcast interview, Me'lani mentions that traveling is an excellent way to recognize different needs in the world. Through traveling, she continues to be inspired to make changes in the world in unique ways. It's important to cultivate a strong internal foundation and faith in yourself. Demand mutual respect, have high expectations, and realize that you are capable of making a difference. If you're able to, it is important to do something that you are passionate about. Find what you love and pursue opportunities around that. One of the best ways to get youth interested in STEM is to expose them to STEM early and often. Me'lani is working on making STEM tools more accessible. Me'lani's highlights include success in Civil War, success with an all-girls program, her work being featured on the TV and news, and her kids. To succeed in STEM, it is important for young people to find the passion within themselves. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to like and subscribe for future videos. Please follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for future updates.